Hey folks, Kiltman here, Kiltman at your services. Wasabi days. Now, an old medieval Benedictine monastery up in the Italian mountains has a string of murders amongst its brethren. The brothers, those of the Cossacks, seemingly are dying on an almost daily basis. Who is committing the murders? Why are the murders being committed? What is the corruption, the deceit, and the lies and the big cover-up that's taking place within the secret Scriptorium Tower? That's library to you and me, which is hidden away from all the other monks. Secret passageways, old codes in Greek and Latin got to be deciphered. Who can work it all out? Who do we need to save the day and keep the faith, brothers? Oh yes, Sean Connery. He's your man. He's your Dark Age Sherlock Holmes, who's going to arrive at this monastery to take care of all these nefarious dealings, expose the inner wrath and the turmoil and the conflict of the Benedictine monks and the Franciscan Brotherhood and the Holy Pope himself and the Inquisitors. Oh yes, it's all going on. It's all kicking off. What are we talking about? The Name of the Rose from 1986, I think it was, based on Umberto Eco's fabulous best-selling novel, The Name of the Rose, from 1980, first published, but then got published, I think, in the UK in about 1983. But fabulous ace French director Jean-Jacques Annaud, who did Quest for Fire with Ron Perlman, who didn't need any makeup at all to play a Stone Age man about to find Radon Chong, for one thing, and fire. And also, what was it called? Enemy at the Gates. Fabulous director. Very visionary. And he campaigned and lobbied hard to get the rights to do The Name of the Rose, which, since its publication only a couple of years beforehand, was deemed unfilmable because of its dense, rich tapestry of faith versus doctrine, law and order, wealth and poverty. Everything was combined into a vast, very wordy sort of tome, which was a medieval whodunit, but also brought in so much else. And as Jean-Jacques Annaud said, he discovered the book, fell in love with it, thought, gotta make this movie, gotta make this. He also learned that at the time of its first publication, it's a bestseller, but he worked out, hang on a minute, everyone I speak to about this book, it's quite apparent you haven't read the book. You just bought the book and it's a wonderful book. You're just saying the things that all the other hoi polloi and the elite expect you to say. You are somebody if you've read Name of the Rose. He discovered he was one of the only people who had read it. So that made him even more determined. I'll get this book, I'll get the rights, I'll make a movie out of it. And then when he finally did manage to get the rights to it, and we got all the funding in place and they'd done all the locations and everything, the book was republished again, and suddenly it became a real celebration around the world. International sales made it a bestseller again. So everyone suddenly was reading the book, and he was like, oh, damn it. A bit of a gatekeeper, I suppose, but suddenly now a lot of eyes are going to be on me because I was going to do this book, which was a masterpiece hiding in plain sight. Now everyone knows it's a masterpiece. So now the stakes are raised even higher. But nothing to worry about there, Jean-Jacques, or JJ, as he likes to be known. Your film's a masterpiece. And yeah, Sean Connery plays William of Baskerville, and he's a Franciscan monk. And with his young protege, a novice Franciscan monk, played by Christian Slater, and this would be Adzo of Melk, they journey to this monastery, this abbey, to try to uncover what's going on. What's killing all these monks? What's behind it all? And they will uncover and unravel a hellish, almost, plot of deviousness, vindictiveness, and Christian cover-ups. But we'll go into all of that. I'm going to try not to be massively scene by scene, spoiler heavy, because there's a lot of magic to this movie, which I think is best left discovered for yourselves. Now, I hadn't seen the film for a long time. When it first came out on Blu-ray, that would be the one there, that cover there, and I reviewed it for AV Forums. I went to town on it. I went really in depth about medieval religion and the doctrine of Christianity and the Holy Pope and all of this sort of stuff, and their power and their wealth and their corrupt nature, and which is the book is all about that. So it has the propensity to be really, really. You could go in depth on it here and go in depth on it there, and you can discuss the politics and this, that, and the other, and the character build and the inner turmoil and the conflict, and then you could forget about the actual whodunit murder mystery plot, because the book especially had so many other topics going on all at the same time. But Umberto Eco's style is magnificent, and this is the original author. He'd spent 15 years at least studying medieval history and religion and politics of its time. So this was the culmination of all of that study, which he poured into that book. So in a film, inevitably you're going to condense that down. There was no way they could have done all the ideas that he was putting across, all the theological debates and arguments that were taking place in the book between various characters, and the narrative itself. So the film does touch on all of this, but it doesn't labour any of it. It does become more of an actual sort of gothic whodunit with the style and ambience of a really good gothic horror movie. It is not a horror film. Do not make that mistake. It is not Friday the 13th just with monks. There is a body count, and there is mystery surrounding each particular slaying. Why they've been killed. Who killed them? Hang on, was that actually a suicide? But if it was suicide, why did he commit suicide? Why did he leap off the high ramparts of the monastery itself, the abbey? So, got a lot to work through with this movie. And I hadn't watched it for a long time, and I watched it the other night with a view to doing this review. And I was blown away by it all over again. There are some sticking points. None of them are major, but one of them is a character, a particular actor, which really doesn't work, and it's in a kind of crucial role as well. But it's not enough to derail the movie from its genuine power, its emotive quality, and its spectral, monastic ambience. I mean, like Jean-Jacques Annaud, I don't believe in God, but as I've said so many times, I love churches, I love monasteries, I love cathedrals, I love the ambience, the atmosphere, I love Gregorian chant, I love the trappings of religion, of Christianity, Catholicism especially, but I don't actually believe in it at the same time. And Jean-Jacques Annaud, JJ, is the same way. But instead of going on holidays on the beach when he was younger, between the ages of like 8 and 11 years old, he begged his mum and dad to take him to, some outlying French province in the mountains so we could go and discover and explore this old cathedral or the ruins of a chapel. I like him. It's great. So, the film has a tremendously thick, redolent Gothic atmosphere. They did scout locations. There is an old abbey in Rheinberg, I think it is. I'm going to find this now. And I wrote it down, and I can't find it now. Can't find it. But it's Rheinberg. And they used that a lot for some of the exteriors, but they built a huge, and I mean huge, edifice, just prop built at Cinecittà, Italian studios in Rome. And they filmed a lot at the gates of Rome. So you're outside of the city, but it's the gates of Rome. And also they were in Cinecittà with inner studios as well. But the whole thing looks incredible. The landscape shots of these windswept and bleak high plains and ridges and mountain ranges bedecked in snow and artificial smog. That's all camera trickery, folks, but it looks bleak and inhospitable. And our two guys arrive there, Adzo is young. Christian Slater is very young when he made this movie. Sean Connery was having a bit of a slump with his acting at this time and the films that he was getting, the film parts that he was getting. But he leapt at this because it was something completely different. And yet, bizarrely enough, if you watch Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, and he's Henry Jones Sr., this film and that film are very, very similar. It's all about ancient religious artifacts, doctrines, Christianity's hidden agenda, deciphering clues, crypts, morgues, secret passageways. It is very similar. Tonally, vastly poles apart, but you can see a lot of Last Crusade in this. Of course, that will come afterwards. But he's magnificent in this. And William of Baskerville. He's had some dealings with the Inquisition as well previously. And he does not like their methods, does not believe in the way that they conduct themselves, which we all know was a massive front. The Inquisitor, look, he was the emissary of God himself, but he thought that. No one else thought that. But the power invested in him by the Pope, he governed life and death. You know, if you didn't admit to something, well, he'll torture you until you do admit it, and then you'll be executed. You know, but all under the blanket coverage of this is for God and for faith. We're doing the right thing, and your soul will be saved. You'll have salvation by being burned alive at the stake. So William Baskerville doesn't like that style, and he's very, forgiving, understanding. He reads books, and again, here's another thing to do with Last Crusade. You know, with the Nazis are burning books. Well, you just goose-stepping Nazi morons chose to read books instead of burning them. You know, I've misquoted that, but you know what I mean. He is a learned man. He's scholarly, and he loves books. He loves to learn. The Franciscans are a different style altogether from the Benedictines, they're pretty much silent. They say this quite a bit. They say this quite a bit. You've got to be silent unless you're being questioned. But a lot of conversation does take place in this. The Benedictines run this huge library. They have a herbalist. They have a cellar worker who does all the food and all obviously the monastic wine and all that. And they have the peasants who live outside. And there's a few lapsed monks, one of them being Ron Perlman himself. Ron Perlman, who Jean-Jacques Annaud discovered and put into the film Quest for Fire. And whatever happened to Ron Perlman? But he loved him. He said, this is a great guy to have on set. And he's such an exuberant personality with very distinctive features, much more on distinctive features. So he plays Salvatore, who's a hunchback, deformed, crazed form. Well, he's a Benedictine lapsed. He's the kind of monk that the brothers don't really want actually in the monastery because he's kind of freakish to look at. But the peasants love him, and he goes out amongst the graves and he catches rats and eats them, and he has a great rapport with the peasants. But he also works for the abbey, the monastery, which is run by the abbot, and he's played by Michael Lonsdale. Michael Lonsdale from Moonraker, yes, the antagonist in that. And every other character in this movie has the most magnificent yet rather bizarre visage. Their faces are huge, contorted, carbuncle ears, massive noses. They've got horrible glassy contact lenses. Jean-Jacques Annaud said to everyone, look, when you're playing these monks, I want you to take your bridges out and your fillings out. I want your teeth to look knackered and horrible. And they got like those ridiculous haircuts where it's all baldy on the top and they got like little spiky bits coming out. They look ridiculous. But these are people from all over Europe, from stage, from TV, from film, from vaudeville, from street performances. but they've all got these spectacularly crazy faces, and it kind of goes in line with the likes of, say, Dario Argento would always pick people with strange looking faces, and of course Sergio Leone, Sergio Corbucci would always pick people who had crazy faces, just because the camera, you don't need special effects, just put them in front of the camera and the audience are going like, because their faces tell stories. So even if their vow of silence, they don't really kind of adhere to, otherwise there'd be no bloody story, and there'd be no script, certainly. You'd be like just watching their faces, and that would tell a story in its own right. So all these people are magnificent, and I'll just run down some of these people. So obviously you've got Sean Connery, you've got Christian Slater. Christian Slater, his older character, who you don't see but you hear the voice of, narrates the tale. And the voice of that is Dwight Weist, or Veast, who's an American actor and voice actor. It's also one of the things that I don't like about it, because that voice does not fit at all the Christian Slater character. It's far too Americanized, and I just think, that doesn't really work, does it? But Michael Lonsdale, you've got as Georges de Berge, who is he's the guy that runs the scriptatorium, the library, and he's blind. He's a blind librarian. You've seen that in many movies, and he's got these horrible, pale, glassy contact lenses with a bit of blue injected through them. You've seen him in The Sentinel. You've seen him in Dario Argento's Inferno as well, looking very similar, in fact. And he's a much older, wizened old Russian actor, but a great actor at the same time. You've got Ilya Bashkin playing Severinus, who is, what does he do? I think he's the herbalist, and he's great with crazy sticky out bits of hair. Ron Perlman, as I say, as Salvatore. You've got the great Michael Haybeck as Berengier. Now, you've got to watch this guy, because he was dying when he made it. He wasn't an old man. Staunch anti-Nazi, and JJ, I know, I picked him. He picked everyone, especially for these roles. And this guy, big belly on him. He's a bit of a Friar Tuck type person, because he's the one down in the cellar, gets all the wine and all that, and looks after the food, and arranges little... There's a way that the peasants get food from the Brotherhood, involving, well, we'll come on to that. But Michael Haybeck was dying at the time. Now, no one knew this, but he was in considerable pain, and he died just before the last day's shoot as well. He was due to come back the next day for a finale, but died. And Jean-Jacques Annaud just says, like, you know, you could see he was, some of his final lines, he was fluffing every scene, because he was struggling to say his lines, so we were losing the pacing of this particular sequence, which was really crucial. But, you know, I could tell there was something wrong, you know, quite clearly. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, I'll get this right, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll get it right. But they muddled through and they did it, and he died before they came back the next day. And it was a big shock, you know. But speaking of shocks, you have the girl, a peasant girl, feral girl. No name is given for this girl other than the girl, and she's played by Valentina Vargas, who's a South American actress that could speak many languages, but sadly every single one of them has a South American accent to it, so it doesn't do a lot of English speaking stuff. And she is I would say ethereal, but she's not. She's feral, but she's enormously attractive. And, well, there's a pivotal sequence, of course, with her. But, well, two pivotal sequences, shall we say. And, of course, they use her to get food, because she, being so attractive, and those poor monks can get quite lonely. You know, silent prayer and reading the scriptures and drinking horrible bloody water, an occasional, you know, goblet of wine perhaps, and rather naff dinners, but giving your life to God and all that. No fun. Well, there is when she sneaks in, if you know what I mean. But that gets food back for the peasants who are living in the hovels in the sort of lee side of this huge monastic edifice. So you got all these things are going on, but these murders are taking place. What's happening? Why are people getting killed? What's the thing that's linking it all together? Well, again, I'm not going to go through this scene by scene. I'm not going to do that. But it's a book. It's a book. Sorry, spoilers ahead. And it is a particular tome which William, Sean Connery, has heard about but never actually read. And the whole thing hinges upon the crime of laughter, the evil of comedy. Because Aristotle wrote a book on poetics, which they've all read, but he also wrote a second book on poetics. And this is the one that everybody wants to read, because this has got almost like divine comedy, you could say. It's not quite that. But it pokes fun at, doctrine, faith, religion, and all the powers and authority that these institutes think that they've got. But pious nature does not necessarily mean you haven't got a sense of humour. And William of Baskerville has got a sense of humour. Oh yeah, Rich Money Panic. And in an earlier confrontation in the scriptorium, the library that we see, that we first encounter, you start reading some clues with a book that one of the victims had been reading. Oh, there's stuff written here. Oh, look at that. The abbot is a fox, and God is a monkey, or something like that. And there's some snickering amongst the otherwise quiet Benedictines, but that guy with the blind librarian, there's some kind of gavel type thing. Silence, and he gets led down to the two Franciscans, Connery and Slater. He says, laughter is the devil's work. Only a fool laughs. And like Sean Connery is like, well, why? Well, why would that be? Surely Jesus Christ had a sense of humour. It is not written in the scriptures that Jesus ever laughed. He said, but it's not written in the scriptures that he never laughed. He said, but it contorts the face, the ligaments and lineage of the face into that of a monkey. And as Sean Connery's character says, monkeys don't actually laugh. Humans laugh. Man laughs. And it didn't even some of our saints laugh in times of dire extremis. And he cites one particular monk who was being boiled alive. who said, whoever was doing it said, "Oh, my bath is too cold." So I think it was some kind of sultan or something put his hand in it, scalded his hand, and the boiling saint had the last laugh, as it were. And he's like, no, only a fool would laugh. He should have been in silence, suffering to greet the afterlife, all this. So you're getting the gist of all of a sudden, this book, this hidden book, this sacred tome, the second book of poetics, that reveals the secret. Laughter. That's all we need. It's the tonic of life. But not if you're a Benedictine, not if you're the Pope, because it contorts the human face and it's the work of the devil. So it must be hidden away. But that book is up there. It's up in the secret library. Not the one that we've all got to know. And if you look at these books, Jean-Jacques Annaud, got actual Latin scribes to these beautiful laminated books and pages full of script and calligraphy and these wonderful, intricate, beautifully created drawings and engravings. Each page would take 6 months to do. So they had a whole horde of these people to do these pages. And I say, for God's sake, don't rip these books up. Don't tear the page out. Don't do nothing to these books. Keep them, and always keep them lying horizontally. You never keep old books vertical, because termites and moisture gets in that way. You keep them horizontal, apparently. And but these are great props. The whole film looks incredibly authentic. You really get a taste of the medieval era. It drips gloom and doom. A lot of the candles are lighting the way. So there's no sort of artificial lighting, except there is the big lanterns that they're all carrying when they're scurrying down dark passageways or throughout the night in shadowy enclaves. They've got to learn how to hold this lantern so that you only see the flame flickering there, not the actual electrically powered lamp that's in there, which is illuminating the actor and the immediate area. But it's very effective, so it gives you that feel. It also feels very cold and wet and it's just, and then the Franciscans wear sandals where everyone else wears like shoes, and so they're scurrying through frozen ground and muddy bits, and it's all wet and dank, and you get that. So you're watching it, and you're pulling your cassock in a bit closer, pulling your cowl up. But it looks amazing. I say the set building is fantastic, totally convincing. There are some weird moments in some crypts where there are, and they went down to real crypts and vaults and mausoleums where there's hundreds of real skulls there, and rats are scurrying about, so the skulls will shift about. But there is a sequence where all these elaborate carved statuary of faces, again skulls, but gargoyles and lots of things like this and that, all emblazoned all over the place, suddenly kind of move, the mouths move, the eyes will open, and it's Adzo, Christian Slater, who will encounter this, and what the hell, what's going, and you don't even find out whether it's just a vision or what, because Salvatore Ron Perlman, who speaks a lot of gibberish, but it's all like heretical gibberish, and he sings, he dances, and he laughs, and he'll spit in people's faces, and he's great. You can't take your eyes off Ron Perlman in anything for that matter, and he's wonderful here. I mean, his previous film for JJ was Quest for Fire. Well, in this film, he's going to friggin' well regret finding that fire, because that's what happens to him at the end of this, but we'll come on to that. So we now know that this book, the second book of Poetics, is the crux of the matter, but monks will throw themselves off the battlements, the ramparts, crash to death on the rocks below. They'll be drowned in vats of pig's blood. They'll drown themselves in a bath scented with lavender and all sorts, because it's meant to cure you from ailments. They'll be smashed over the head with sharp pointy things, and other deaths will ensue. And because William of Baskerville and Adzo are getting close to this, but their ideas, the abbot, Michael Lonsdale, is kind of like, well, look, you keep saying these things, you keep finding these clues, you find a parchment, oh, that's Greek, that's all Greek. Pass me that candle. And it's slightly, this little ripped off bit of paper, which has been scribed upon, and secret calligraphy, secret message comes up, and it's been written with lemon juice, so they have to heat it up to see it. So they present that to the abbot, and the abbot just goes, this is nothing, it means nothing at all, and then burns the whole thing and blows the ash into their faces. So look, these guys are hiding something, they know what's happening, and it's all to do with this bloody book. So various monks will find this book, will learn of this book, and begin to start decrypting bits and leaving clues. But why are they dying? Because the pages are poisoned, that's why. The corner of each page. Because they find bodies with a black mark on the thumb and a black mark on the tongue. And what's that with? And they go and turning the pages, And it's clever. So you've got to use a glove to turn these pages. William Baskerville will learn all this. They'll also learn how to decipher these codes and open these secret doorways. There's an elaborate mirrored, like a gold mirrored doorway. It's almost like Gandalf trying to open the gates to go into Moria, and he's tried every spell in the book, and yet it's speak friend and enter. It couldn't be any simpler. And again, the clues are actually pretty simple as well, but it takes a dedicated brain to work these things out. And there's threat lurking over these guys as well. You know, then suddenly various members of the monastery aren't trusting our two Franciscans. Now, I said, like, the Franciscans are a different type of order. And, you know, St. Francis of Assisi and all of this, love animals and that kind of thing. Well, I'm kind of reminded a bit of how the Jesuits appeared in The Exorcist, the original book by William Peter Blatty, and then, of course, in Friedkin's movie. The Jesuits, during the early 70s, were kind of the cool kids on the religious block. The ecclesiastical, you know, they were Daddy Zuko, you know, of the God world. And this is a Benedictine version of Summer Lovin'. But I'm playing James Horner's score for The Name of the Rose. But the Franciscans are kind of cool at the same time. They don't really work they haven't pledged their lives just to, you know, be in prayer and chant Gregorian style all the time and be pious and also hypocritical, because they might be pious and believe, and, you know, poverty, but poverty is outside for the peasants, not for them, because the church, of course, was accumulating vast wealth, and there are rooms within this monastery where there is fabulous artifacts, gold encrusted grails perhaps, and scepters and all sorts of things, which J.J. Anu had got fabulous eminent jewellers from around Europe to build and craft for him. So the production values on this movie are absolutely unbelievably stratospheric. Given its rather limited location and setting, I should say, of a very dank, gloomy and dismal abbey on top of a mountain, full of mud and snow and ice. And most of the snow, of course, is actually fake. But, well, I'll come on to, if I remember to come on to this, the final day's shoot, a genuine miracle happened. And but we'll come on to that. So you've got this ominous aura of pervading threat, which only gets considerably worse. More Franciscans arrive, some of whom know William of Baskerville, one of whom played the great Bill Hickey, is wonderful, but he's kind of set in his ways. He's trying to say to William, look, when you start using your heart, not your head, you know the problem you have, you think too much. And like, but these guys, this guy, it doesn't stay for too long, just says his piece and like, no, put your books away, use this, follow the faith, you know, don't go thinking these big thoughts. It's not good and you're wrong. But I love you, William, I love you. And like, you know, but you know, just, he says to Anso, don't listen to too much of what this guy says. Use your own heart as well. Like, but William is trying to say, look, don't just follow your heart. Think, use your head, read books. You know, that's the thing, that's knowledge. Read books. So, but this other guy, Bill Hickey, leaves. But some of the Franciscans are there, but they're pretty much powerless. And they're not really helping too well. But one of whom was played by one of the films. There's a few screenwriters on the movie, and I think his name is, I don't know what his name is, but he plays one of the monks as well. Like, and he's pretty good, because J.J. Ano said there, you know, I wanted to put him in the film because he's got an unusual face as well, and we just covered him in dirt and put a silly little hat on him as well. So when they actually arrive there, he's the dirtiest looking Franciscan. This is deeper into the movie, and Ron Perlman is like, there's a procession of peasants getting food, which he's actually nicking stuff from their vestments as well. One's got an apple and a banana or something like that. He takes the apple from that one, like. But all these Franciscans come in, but the dirty one, who's actually the co-screenwriter, Ron Perlman, just leaps like, get out, you dirty filth. And he's like, no, he's one of us, bring him in. Like, this is brother so-and-so from Winchester or whatever, like. And he's like, oh, sorry about that, like. Brilliant. But you find that the killings go on, no one's believing William and Anso, the things that they've seen, the things that they've learned, and they're not telling everything anyway, because they know there's corruption here. Someone is pulling the strings. There's a reason for these deaths, which we already know now what it is, but you don't know who's doing it though. And so the abbot sends out for the Inquisitor, the Inquisition to come. So the Pope will send his envoy. The princes of the church, these are knights, will lead a procession, a wagon of the Inquisitor. What's his name? Let's get his name. Bernardo Guy, who was real. He existed. Bernardo Guy, and he wrote his memoirs and described the techniques for extracting confessions and all that kind of thing, which they will do in this. Brother Kentucky over here. Yes. He's took a solemn oath of silence. He refused the vow of celibacy though. Yeah. Naughty Brother Kentucky. So this guy's played by Oscar winner F. Murray Abraham. Now, F. Murray had just won the Oscar for his supporting role in Amadeus. And he met with J.J. Leno and said, and somewhere in Germany, and said, yeah, I'll do this movie for you. But I want you to know something. I've sweat, blood and tears, and given my all and suffered for directors. And now I've got my Academy Award. So I'm going to make directors suffer. And as JJ says, filmmaking is a collaborative thing. And I can't think of anything bad to say about anybody except for F. Murray Abraham, who was basically a bastard throughout the production of this movie. And even though Sean Connery was the bigger name, the bigger draw, but he hadn't won an Oscar at that time, so he was of course he would very swiftly afterwards for The Untouchables, but F. Murray Abraham was no, find out what time he's meant to arrive on set and make sure he gets there, and I'll arrive in my own time afterwards. So he was stalling each day's shoot because he had this arrogance, these airs and graces. And as Jean-Jacques Annaud said, that caused disturbance and pissed a lot of people off, especially myself. But but we put up with it. But what goes around comes around. Pretty soon, every filmmaker, director got to know about F. Murray Abraham's behaviour, and suddenly he wasn't getting the great roles anymore. He wasn't getting what he wanted. So, and in all my honest opinion, even without knowing that, one of the things I don't like about this film, and it's not that I don't like it, I just don't think he does it so well, is F. Murray Abraham's performance as Bernardo Guy. He comes across very American, where everyone else has got these vastly different accents. And okay, you've got Sean Connery there, but the and all that kind of stuff, his brogue, it's not quite as exaggerated as we normally appreciate it. He tones it all down, and he's very believable as as William of Baskerville. But F. Murray Abraham, he just struts around, and he's got it's just a little ring of hair, and big baldy face, but his eyebrows are big, diabolical eyebrows, and he's got the beard and all the dark beard. But his voice does not convince, and he's meant to be very threatening and intimidating. He has a prior history with William of Baskerville, and when he sees that he's there as well, he's like, right, I'm going to use you without a doubt. We've got unfinished business. But what happens as soon as they arrive, the Inquisition, I struggled with that then. That's probably a sign that I'm a heretic. He gets there just when Salvatore and the feral girl they're in the cellar, and they've got a black cockerel, and a black cat just happens to be there as well. Oh God. And Salvatore's trying to lick this girl's foot, and she's like, and spitting in his face. But he's got a couple of skulls, and they are performing some form of heresy. But Salvatore doesn't really care. He doesn't believe in any of this. He's just having a bit of fun. But of course, they set fire to the barn by accident. So the horses are all whinnying and giving it loads. So everyone runs to the barn, and they find these two supposedly in flagrante delicto, or whatever it is, meaning the Inquisitor Bernardo Guy assumes that they're going to have carnal knowledge of each other. But look at this, it's a black cockerel. And look at this, it's a black cat as well. He's holding these two things up like, you sent for me to find proof of what's happening here. And straight away I have found proof of the devil. Take these to the dungeon. And it's pretty nasty turn of events. So they get taken down to the dungeon, manacled up, and all sorts of burning implements and pointy, horrible things are going to be wielded on them. And poor old Ron Perlman's screaming and wailing, and they took his top off him so you can see his hump as well. Like, and he's only got one tooth, and they've given him, as I said before, JJ, I know, wanted people, he didn't have to put any makeup on him, any prosthetics. He wanted strange faces, captivatingly weird faces. So he said, all I'd do, if I had a big nose, I would kind of lighten the nose so it'd draw your attention to it more. And they take your fillings out, and you, how easy? You can't just take a filling out, can you? But that's what he said. And you take your crowns and your bridges out as well. So as little teeth as possible. But for Ron Perlman, obviously he does this skanky tooth, and he gives him like a snout, an almost werewolf, like Lon Chaney Jr. style snout with big flared nostrils. And they've really gone to town on his hair, like shaved his head, but left little tufts all over the place. So when poor Ron Perlman had to go up, well, if he went out from the set to go and get something to eat, went into the town, he had to wear a hood the whole time, because he just looked so bloody awful. And but he was a cheerful soul and put up with it regardless. So he said all I did for him was just gave him this snout and did his hair back and put his hump on his back. That was it, but it's very effective though. But you've got the poor guy that died in the last couple of days of making the movie. What's his name again? Michael Hayback. Now he's the guy who runs the cellar. So the assistant to the librarian, the blind librarian, whispers in his ear, "Oh, you need to get going because Salvatore's been caught and the girl. So do a runner." So he does try to escape, but he's tipped off the church princes, the knights who go after him, capture him. So he then gets incriminated because he's tried to escape. Well, you're involved as well. One of you has murdered these monks. I haven't murdered anyone. Well, these two are guilty of heresy and black magic and devil worship. And you are obviously the murderer. You're definitely all in cahoots. You will all face the Inquisition. So shit. And this guy, Bernardo Guy, F. Murray Abraham, will make sure that he says, "Oh, well, my fellow judges, I'll have you and I'll have you, William of Baskerville." So he wants him. And initially he says to him when he first makes the arrest, he says "William of Baskerville, what are your thoughts on this?" Because he knows that he's working on a different tactic. His detective brain is kicking in, and no, it's nothing to do with them three, but it's to do with this bloody book and the tower and this and that. And you're not listening to the evidence that I've compiled and put forward. You're blocking me out. So what are your thoughts on this then, William? And so you don't really care for my experiences. You've already made your mind up, which is exactly what's happened. But he's going to, because they've had dealings in the past with other heretics and other people who've been accused of all sorts. One guy, because he recites this to Adzo, one Inquisition that I had to sit in on with him, Guy, was just a translator who was translating Greek, or Greek into Latin. And because of that, he got done, and I argued, but he wouldn't listen to me. So I have no trust in Bernardo Guy. His tactics are not our tactics. So you get the big trial, and it's a fairly effective piece. But of course, Guy is just he's going to twist their words and look, as far as I'm concerned, you're all guilty. So unless you confess right now, we're going to torture a confession out of you, and then we're going to burn you at the stake. So of course, what's his name? Berengar, Michael Hayback, the big fat guy who ran the cellar and all that, the one who tried to escape, seemingly tried to escape. It's "I'll confess it, just don't torture me, Just well, what did you do then? I killed them, I killed everybody. William Baskerville's he clearly didn't. One was suicide, and the rest have had these bloody poison on their fingers and their tongues. So it's not you. You didn't do any of this. And he just doesn't want to be tortured. So it just comes down to well, so you believe in the devil? You're in league with the devil. So he starts with Lucifer and like Beelzebub, and he starts spitting all these, diabolical names. All the monks like, oh, oh, and they're hiding themselves, being in their cowls and all this, like shuddering at the mere mention of these diabolical names. He said, right, you'll burn at the stake. The purifying flames will sort you out. And these other two as well. And that girl. Especially that girl. Now, that girl, we've got to talk about Valentina Vargas and Christian Slater. There is the much, infamous sex scene in this movie, which you don't expect to be in a movie like this. It's all monks, don't you know? And the pleasure of the flesh, they've denied themselves such things. Well, during one particular scene, Christian Slater will chase somebody into one of these basements and cellars where all the fruit is kept, and he'll hide away when someone else comes in, which is actually the guy who confesses to all of this, Berengar. I've got to start writing these notes with a bit of a clearer hand. Maybe I'll use lemon juice next time. And he comes in and looks around, but yeah, he's hiding away in the shadows. And suddenly the face of the feral girl appears, looming out the shadows. And this sequence is it is notorious because Christian Slater, who was very young at the time, had no idea what was about to happen, because it clearly wasn't even given to him as a script or a storyboard. JJ, I know, does a lot of storyboards, but obviously didn't show him any of these. But Valentina Vargas, playing the feral girl, knew exactly, and he said, look, this scene is yours. I want you to seduce him. You do whatever you want. There'll be nudity. I'm only going to have 2 cameras, me, my assistant, and the camera assistant, and you two. That's it. Closed set. So the reactions you see of Christian Slater, because he says to him, Christian, look, you're a good actor, but I'm not going to tell you what she's going to do. You just react to it. Do whatever you feel is necessary, but in character. So, God. So she does seduce him, gets her top open, puts his hand on her breast, puts his head into her breasts. She undresses his cassocks, and you see a bit of him as well, which you don't expect. Yeah, and then she straddles him, and there's a fair bit of nudity and writhing, and you're like, but Christian Slater's reactions are genuine, and it makes the scene not uncomfortable to watch, because what they said, okay, look, I think she went to a priest and said, we've done this scene. Is that actually okay? Would that be allowed? So this is how far they're taking their commitment to the role. And then Christian Slater went as well and said, look, we've just done this scene. Do you think that was acceptable? And the priest said, well, it's love. And love is the most beautiful thing we've got, in this terrestrial life. So yeah, it's totally fine. And apparently the priest said to JJ, I know, can I look at the footage? Naughty priest. But it's a great scene, and it goes past being sleazy or just raunchy. She's dominant, but you can see the reaction on his face, and he's just stunned, as any young lad would be, because he actually said when he first met her, before any of this took place, but he knew that she's the girl that he's going to have an assignation with. I feel very sorry for and sympathetic towards, and want to save. He said, well, he saw her and felt, only a young lad, Christian Slater, felt instantly in love with her. As JJ and O said, every male member of the crew fell in love with her as well. So he said, I don't want to test with anyone else. I don't want to see anyone else. I just want her. I'll act with her. And that's what happened. So his reactions are exactly what they'd be for a young lad, a young teen, who's suddenly got the girl of his dreams and she's all over you. You're like, I can't. This is happening to me. I'd be made up. Film this, because no one else is ever going to believe it. Film it. It's a great sequence, it really is. So she is going to go to the stake as well, and you get this two-pronged finale where another monk is killed clobbered over the head. Another one collapses and is poisoned. And they've worked out the guy that was floating around in the air, the lavender bath, he was poisoned and was dying already. He'd left some of these little notes, and like Sean Connery is saying to the abbot, look, you can see he's written here. Whoever wrote this was writing clearly, legibly there, and then suddenly you see how the calligraphy changes, and it's basically it's like normal neat writing, and then suddenly it goes and falls off the page. He said he was clearly dying at that stage because he'd been poisoned, and this guy had run off, and he found him floating in this bath, drowned in this bath of lavender. He said, well, lavender's meant to cure ailments. He must have thought that would help him get over the poison. Didn't work, obviously. So another couple of monks get killed, and we now know someone is. You see, what's his name? Severinus, the herbalist, who's played by Ilya Bashkin, who I think he's really good. He's got a massive big hooter as well, and the craziest hair ever. And he's seen things, so he's trying to give evidence, and he's shouting to William Baskerville, but he gets seen by someone else relaying this message, and then when he runs off to his little herbal laboratory, he finds it's all been trashed. Everything's disarray everywhere, and he's like, well, there's the book, right, I've got to keep that book. Puts his gloves on, drops a glove on the floor, and as he bends under the trestle table to pick up the glove, behind the curtain there's a couple of like Blackadder style like curly cute boots, and as he watches, the curtain moves and the boots come towards him, and he's like, ah, ah, ah. And suddenly you just see a great big, I don't know what it is, a gyroscope type thing of brass and gold, but spiky bits as well, and it gets clubbed on the head, it gets his brains bashed out. So you find his body. Now things are not looking good for William Baskerville, because now Bernard O'Gee doesn't like him, because during that trial, William stands up and says, what do you think? Is he guilty? Yes, he's guilty. And you can see Christian say it's like that, oh no, because that means the girl's going to be guilty. Oh, but Master, shouldn't you have spoken out? And Christian is crying like, and just in shock. And he goes like, yeah, he's guilty. Guilty of former crimes, when he misinterpreted the gospel and thought that, hang on, the church shouldn't be this rich. There's a lot more in the book you see about this, but these guys have done stuff in the past and been labelled as heretics in the past, but kind of got over it, because obviously this guy Bernard O'Gee didn't do the interrogation and torture on them, and like they've robbed from the church to give to the poor, Robin Hoods of course, and desecrated church dwellings and buildings, because no, the church shouldn't have these riches, it should be for everybody. So they've got that argument going on as well. So William Baskerville just states, no, they're guilty of previous crimes, but they're not guilty of this. Well, how do you know that? Because Benedictor, whatever his name is, Berengar, can't read Greek. It all hinges on a book that's written in Greek, And they're like, well, because this is Aristotle and the second book of Poetics. See, it's all, I'm trying to talk around it all and give in generalised terms. It's still bloody complicated, isn't it? Now, you imagine the book. The book is super, super complicated, but the film really streamlines all of that. But either way, right, we have to watch William. We don't trust him now because he's saying too much. So they got guards watching him, but they managed to make a getaway, him and Adzo, Christian Slater. And as these poor bastards are being led out to be burned at the stake, they get back into the library. Now, what I should have said, there is this other library in the tower. There's a great big huge tower, and they've the scriptorium is there, but what's in there? I want to see what the books are that's lurking up there, because he's already worked out. And they find a way of getting in there with a skull. Put your fingers through the eye sockets of the skull, and a crypt moves back, and you go down a secret passage, and you go down this way, that way, and you go up some stairs here, and you come up in this Hogwartsian library, which is actually a maze. And when you see it, when you first get up there, and they see it, it's midnight or whatever, and there's all these books and tomes everywhere. It's wonderful. Sean Connery's William is just, he's in heaven, literally, because Adzo, these books, look at these books. And, there's almost tears of joy. Look at these. And, they can't believe what they read. All these hidden scriptures and things which the church has sought to quash because they're not the principles that they are endorsing and reinforcing across the population and the world. They're the most powerful organisation in the world at this time, of course. So it's like a eureka moment. So they've already been in there. But when you go out of these rooms, you go into what is a complete, and this is a real set. They built this real. It's no miniature work whatsoever. The stairways going down that way, going that way, crisscrossing that way. It is Hogwarts. But in Hogwarts, those staircases all move around, don't they, of course? But in this, it's a labyrinth. And the two of them get lost. And they're shouting to each other, Anso, just keep reading from that book you've got there. And keep turning left. And you can hear these distant voices and all that. And it is a genuine labyrinth of the mind, of literature. And what he's reading, what Christian Slater is reading, is a passage about lycanthropy. The Wolfman! And he's reading it out about genuine verse, text from an old tome from the 14th century about what they believed lycanthropy was. He was prowling around in the graveyards looking for bones and looking for meat, and his hair was wild. I made up with this. So not only did William of Baskerville have his own and so look. When I first saw this and heard the word lycanthropy and describing werewolves, I was like, it's even better again. But what Anso does, which is clever, he remembers the Greek scriptures and the Greek classics, being lost with the Minotaur in the labyrinth, unravels a bit of his cassock, could have gone a bit too far this, and anchors it on so they can find that when they do finally meet up, well, how do we find our way back though, says William of Baskerville. And I'm like, look, Master, look. And you can follow the trail back. And he's like, well done, boy. You remember the classics. It's beautiful. Beautiful moment. So, they've all discovered this place. So they know that there's hidden tomes, and they found this bloody book, of course, and they've discovered that there's poison on the corner of each page. So that, you like that, and you've poisoned yourself. You're doomed by reading it. It's the one fail-safe that they've got for this book. And so they go back there again because we've got to get the evidence. I mean, the killer they've just lost another monk, so the killer's probably in there now. Let's get up there. Now at the same time as this is happening, you've got Salvatore, Berenger, and the feral girl have been led out. And they're tied to these stakes. And all the villagers have crept up as well. And they're picking up stones. And you're thinking, they're going to get them out. They're going to spring them at the last minute. But they do set fire to Berenger and Salvatore. And Ron Perlman's, don't go thinking The Devils. And don't go thinking Witchfinder General or Mark of Satan. Or Mark of the Devil, sorry. This film is nowhere near as violent as that. You don't even see any of the torture taking place, but the inference is still pretty bad. But you do see Ron Perlman, who's singing as the smoke's rising, and he's giving it loads, but then he begins to, the smoke's rising, he starts going, he's laughing, because he's a simpleton as well. But then he's in pain, and oh my God, and he's screaming, and you don't see them melt. You don't see their hearts explode, because that is what happens when people get burned alive. The blood boils and the heart actually explodes. And that's what, you haven't succumbed to the fumes and the shock of being in such colossal pain. That's what kills you. And sooner rather than later, you know what I mean? But you see these two go up in flames, but they don't set fire to the feral girl. And in the meantime, the crowd's got a bit fucking angsty. So the Inquisitor, Bernard O'Gee, and his men are like let's get back in. At the same time, this is taking place in the tower, with all the big maze and labyrinth. They get to another part, and there is a cowled guy leaning over the desk with the book, the actual book itself. And who's the guy who's instigated all of this? The guy who's blind, the blind librarian. How the hell did he do it? Because he had other people do it for him. That's why. But he's there, and why are you doing this? Well, I've already explained, you can't have laughter. It's a sign of the devil. We can't have the church being unravelled by ideas which were not put forward by us. This book is evil, and we can't allow it to go anywhere. But here, you've won the day, he says with his glassy eyes, passes the book to Sean Connery. Of course, not realising that Sean Connery knows about the poison, puts a glove on, starts turning the pages, and says, like, of course, I'm not going to fall for that, because I've got gloves on, you silly old blind fool. In which case he goes, "Huh!" grabs the book, and being blind, but he must know his way around, but he still knocks over one of these lanterns and place goes into flames. So you've got people burning outside, and you've got this tower, this edifice is now ablaze, big inferno. So you've got huge sort of, try and save as many books as possible. Poor William, he just, no, Anton, we must save these books. But Master, we must get out of here. And like, they will be separated. There is, oh, I forgot, there's a trap in there as well, which is earlier on when he first got in there. Well, Anton, this place is fantastic. Takes one step forward, falls through the fucking floor. This is Sean Connery. He's hanging there, and his lantern drops below, like a long well. There's all books down there, goes into flames. So it's already been on fire before, thinking about it. But obviously he gets helped out and everything's okay. But these two get separated. In the meantime, the rafters come down on the blind guy. Now, what's his name? Georges de Bourges, played by Fyodor Chapelain, who's the Russian actor, and he's wonderful. Now, in reality, it's meant to be balsa wood above him which comes down, but in a mix-up with the storyboards which had been stolen, all the extras were nicking all the skulls and statues, and J.J. Arnaud's storyboards went missing as well. They were getting rifled some in Chronic. So he said on the day of this filming this climactic scene, the rafters come down. He said, right, so we're going to film it here, and he's going to step that way, and then the roof comes down, and they're going, what do you mean the roof comes down? Well, it's on fire, it's going to fall on his head, all out of balsa wood. Yeah. Stuntman will take his place. We didn't know nothing about that. It's in my storyboards. Well, where's the storyboards? Oh, so they had to go and rebuild all this, but they coat it with a kind of glue which set fire, which smoke will rise and it goes ablaze. But because they were up above, the crew who were building this and they set it on fire, the fumes got too much and they were passing out. And then they tried to grab hold of this bit of wood to move it out the way. When a blaze dropped it and it landed on the real old age actor. You see it in the film, hits him side of the head on his shoulder, and down he goes. And that wasn't balsa wood, it was fucking oak wood. It was a big slab of oak. Really could have killed the guy. So like Jean-Jacques Annaud was like, oh my God, and he leapt over there and putting the flames out. And the guy's just going, it's all right, it was just balsa wood. And they're going, yeah, you did well. It wasn't balsa wood, it was a fucking big slab of oak. But the trials and tribulations of being a monk in the movies. So that character dies there, and you get Christian Slater runs out and he sees the burning, he knows what's going to happen. So he sees, the peasants are turning on the Inquisitors, were trying to get out, and he's like running after them, no, like that. And he tries to shut the big portcullis comes down, but these bastards get out just in time. But Christian Slater sealed himself in there now, and he's like, But the mob grab hold of this carriage, this wagon. They free the horses, but they overturn the wagon. And here's the other rather naff bit, which, and again, it involves F. Murray Abraham, because they push this wagon over the edge of the cliff, and it goes, whoa, tumbles down, but he falls out of it, but lands on whatever one of these torture devices in the back of the wagon, full of spikes. Looks like something off a combine harvester. He lands on that, quilled with these spiky bits and blood everywhere, and then he dies. Now in the book, that's not what happens, because Guy survived. That didn't happen to Guy. But Jean-Jacques Annaud said, well, this is where me and Umberto Eco differ. He sees things from a scientific and historical point of view, where he doesn't like a happy ending, because it doesn't. He'll tell you the ending which he believes would be the realistic ending, but I'm more Hollywood than that, and I like happy endings. So you do. happy ending in that the guy, the evil one, gets his comeuppance and gets killed anyway, which wouldn't have happened. And to be honest, it does smack a bit of a Hollywood gloss, and it's all too easy and convenient. So the only failings this film has are to do with F. Murray Abraham. I don't think he gives a good performance in this movie. I think he undermines the power of what the rest of the film is really supported by. Its foundations of ominous melancholy and religious fervour are wonderful and truly exacting to behold, whereas he just comes strutting in, and again, he's pure Hollywood, and it doesn't work. And then the ending, again, you can't blame him for that, I suppose, but it still involves his character. It's just too easy. It's too easy a way out, and we get a bit of a payoff. But of course, Slater runs back and looks at the burning pyres, and there's two which are burned, so obviously two, but one hasn't been touched by flames. So where is the girl? Well, and this is the thing, of course. So he runs back and William Baskerville, because the place is on blaze, and all the monks are trying to put the flames out. But it's like a castle that's on fire, and they've got little buckets and all that sort of stuff. But out the main door, Master, he comes out, and Sean Connery's got smoke coming off him, and he's got under his cassocks, he's got about 30 books under each arm, and he's trying to save all these. Adso, and the two embrace, and it's a lovely cathartic moment. So the next thing, the film's pretty much over, but these two are going to leave, go on their travels again, their odyssey, and he's on a horse, William Baskerville's on a horse, Christian Slater's on a donkey, but they've got the books strapped to these animals, and as they go down this path, beneath the winding path into the bleak countryside, beneath this abbey, there's the girl standing there, the feral, with her robes, her hood up, but that beautiful face, and Christian Slater can't believe it. And you get this voiceover again by what's his name, Dwight Weist, which again doesn't really fit. It's too American. The voice he uses is just too American, and even though Christian Slater is a very American young teen in this movie, you don't get. He still sounds authentic in many ways, whereas this voiceover doesn't. But you get this passage like, I love that girl, but in all that happened, I never got her name. I never saw her again. I never knew what happened to her. I never got her name. And she stops him, and they exchange a look, and she wants, can I come with you, or are you going to stay with me? And you can see he's conflicted. Sean Connery rides a bit further on, stops and turns, and then Slater rides off, and there's a tear, and they're all crying basically. He stops again and looks back at her. It's a very moving moment. I do get like this a lot, and but it's lovely. And the thing is, the name of the rose. Well, there's a line in the movie which, do you know what? I think they take the line out, but it was meant to be there. Well, when you take what's a rose without a name, what is a rose? And it's a biblical sort of terminology. But for me, I think the rose in this movie is the girl, because she is the one thing of beauty in this otherwise blighted landscape full of sort of harsh reality, bigotry, corruption, pain, torture and suffering. She's the one shining light that we've seen, and Adso loves her. She's the rose in this life, this existence he's had so far, but he never got a name. So she's to him, she's just the rose. So the name of the rose is Rose. Oh dear. It's a wonderful movie, folks. A wonderful film. The score by James Horner is not at all what what's his face, JJ I know wanted, but he knew James Horner from Cocoon, Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, The Hand, Wolfen, many other movies, of course, by this stage. So he brings him on, and they had a meeting somewhere in Berlin as well. And he said, well, James Horner went and got all ancient instruments ecclesiastical instruments and chimes and bells and things, and he was going to employ Gregorian chant. But he also, like what you're hearing there, would have synthesized drones, which is the menace and the darkness, the suspenseful moments. But he said, like, he began playing me bits of music, and he said, what do you think of this? And it'd just be like, and you go, oh, that sounds okay. Maybe would you prefer this then? The second one. Use the second one. But when he heard the full score put together, he went, this is JJ, I know. He went, what's that? No, I don't like that. And James Horner was like, got really angry. He said, you liked it before. And Jean-Jacques Annaud likens it to, if you've got a fabulous meal being presented to you, someone, the cook, the chef before him might go, well, try a bit of this. Tastes lovely. Now try a bit of this. That's lovely as well. Individual ingredients could be delicious, but when you incorporate it into a big meal, you might go, well, you know what? I like that and that, but I don't like the whole thing put together. And that's how I felt about it. So he had a massive falling out. For many years, they wouldn't speak to each other. And which was such a shame, because I thought he was a dear friend. And when I finally put the movie together and put the music on, I thought the music worked perfectly. It is very sparse, but it is very simple, and yet probably very complex, using these old instruments. I'm trying to let you hear it. With the Franciscan monks and the Benedictine monks doing their Gregorian chanting and all that sort of stuff, which some of the actors are doing that as well. Although Sean Connery he's sitting in the back, he's clearly just mouthing it. Don't think he's doing it at all. But Christian Slater was in awe of working with Sean Connery, who he just thought, he's one of the gods. He's James Bond. He's one of the gods of movies. And every day on set, any moment they were together, he was just jaw-dropped, because there's a hero in front of him. But Sean Connery knew this and used it. So he was quite harsh with Christian Slater. Like, no, you've got to say that properly, son. Fucking don't know what accent that was. But you've got to say it properly. Do it again. No, you stand there. You move this way. No. And Jean-Jacques Annaud was thinking, oh no, he's probably shattered every illusion that Christian Slater ever had about this man. He was his hero. And when he asked him about it, he said, no, I love it. I'm learning so much. He can shout at me all he wants. I'm just having such a great time. Having such a great time because you're shagging Valentino Vargas, aren't you, as well? Like, but Slater, who he has done some great performances in his time. Heathers, God, what else? I'm struggling now to think of other ones. Young Guns 2, a few other movies, but he's great. He's wonderful in this movie. He has that wide-eyed wonder. He has that. You can see he gets excited not just by a naked woman, but also by books and by learning and all the unraveling of the plot. And you also understand he's believing in faith as well. He's learning from his master. This is just an aside, a life and death one. I'll give you that. But they go on and they will have other learnings and teachings and other experiences. But in the closing narration, he also says, like, after our last whatever, I would never see William of Baskerville ever again. I don't know where he is. I don't know what happened to him. But obviously they went on different roads, literally, and other experiences. But you can see he's got no. He even says, "I don't regret anything, like leaving the girl behind. I don't regret it, but I just wish I knew her name." So, and here we have a discussion as well, because Sean Connery's character does get to know that, oh yeah, you've been making the beast with two backs with a feral girl in the fruit cellar when he should have been reading the gospel. And it's like William Baskerville knows that he's got one on him, because that's something I've never had. I've never had. I understand, the physical pleasures. I understand lust and the need for it and temptation, but that's something you've got on me, because I haven't done it. You have. So you're the expert on this, and it's a nice sort of reversal. And the film is full of things like this. They work as a good double act. You can't say it's like Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Sean is Sherlock in this. Sherlock in a cassock. But Adzo is not Dr. Watson. He's there on Friday, and he does the whole thing with the twine so they can find their way back out the labyrinth is brilliant. But he's more of it. He's not quite the foil. He's there going along with it. So, but I love it. I think The Name of the Rose is a fantastic film. It's a strange film. It's probably not to everyone's sort of cup of tea, really, but the atmosphere, I think, is wonderful. Very effective. And the film itself seeps into you. That aura, that cloying, cloistered coldness of it is delicious. And I said about the miracle, that last sequence where they're going down this windy sort of country path and it's all snowy and covered in ice. Again, this was where they filmed at the gates of Rome. And as Jean-Jacques Annaud said, it never snows in Rome. Never. We'd already used all our budget for fake snow, and this was the one last scene, and he said, pray. I wish we had enough money for more fake snow. How am I going to do it? And that day, when they arrived at the location, it was a blizzard, and it had snowed, and he was like, oh my God, thank you, I prayed, and it's a miracle. God listened. And he said, I don't even believe in God, but someone listened. If you're listening now, anyone, not just God, that's the husky slurping water there. But on the flip side of that, because it was a blizzard, none of the crew could get there. It's like, oh no, we've got the snow, but I haven't got the crew. I've got me cast. So he quickly set up a camera himself and pretty much did that scene, that closing scene, the farewells and all that, going down this windy path. Did it himself, and it does work. So he said, well, at the time of the commentary track that I heard him discuss this on, he said, like, well, in the years after that, it's never snowed in Rome either. So the sets are fantastic. The location work is brilliant. That Hogwartsian labyrinth is really, really cleverly done, cleverly constructed. And again, all the rooms are in there. There's only 3 different rooms in that labyrinth, but they have to redress it all the time, put the books in different order in different parts of it, and film from a different angle to give you the impression you're in a different room again, and you're going through all these different places. And you've got that mystical mirror thing. You've got to find a way to decipher that, to open that it's a door. So you've got secret passages, you've got murders, you've got persecution, corruption, you've got sex. Then you've got a lot of men in cassocks. There you go. It is The Name of the Rose. I have been, and always shall be, Kiltman. Please, in the meantime, and it's ever ecclesiastical in between time, please keep it Celtic, and don't go in that tower, whatever you do. No matter how tempting it might be, don't go in the tower, because books can kill. So folks, please keep it Celtic. I'm going to see you all. And if you like this video, God help you, please leave a like, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm going to catch you all again.